Friend, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's nice to see everyone here this evening. We have a lot of strength on the right-hand side. So those of you who are on my left have to exert yourself. We are going to begin our service as we turn to page 2, and we are going to continue with L'cha Dodi. Are we doing Shalom Aleichem? Whatever you tell me to do, we'll do. What do you want to do?
It happens to us every time. I think you thought it was the third one, so the third one we had 6 people.
No, okay. No, no.
Shalom Aleichem.
First of all, I have the sheet.
Does it say Shalom Aleichem?
I didn't read the sheet.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay,
like Shalom Aleichem?
I like everything that you do. I'm so easygoing. Page 6, Shalom Aleichem. Friends, we are going to continue on page 7 with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. Carol, where are you? Come on down. Page 7.
Come, let us welcome Shabbat. May its radiance warm our hearts as we kindle these tapers. Light is the symbol of God's presence in our lives. The Eternal One is our light and our salvation. Light is a symbol of the holiness within each of us. The human spirit is a light of God. Light is a symbol of the Torah's teachings, for the commandment is a lamp, there is a light. Light is a symbol of Israel's mission, as it is written, I have made you a covenant people, so serve as a light to the nations. Therefore, in the spirit of our ancient tradition that houses and unites Israel in all lands and all ages, we kindle the lights of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yishanu mitzvotav, v'siman mahat ne'er shel Shabbat. We praise our eternal God, creator of the universe, who hallows our lives through laws and ethical teachings. We are mindful of these timeless values as we kindle the lights of Shabbat. May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen.
Thank you. We are going to continue in our service as we continue in our prayer book on page 36. And we're going to ask everyone to please rise. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Baruchu et Adonai Hamevorach.
Be seated. We continue on the top of page 37. Ever-living God, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify of your power and wisdom. Day follows day in enduring succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, your glory will never depart from us. Help us to be your partners that we may endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Together, all goodness and truth come from you, O God. May no transgressions estrange us from you, nor self-centeredness darken our vision of your purposes. Help us to recognize that which is just and more fully understand your will. In adversity and in prosperity, may the light of Torah illuminate our path, and may we labor in your service so that our deeds become a living hymn of praise to you. On page 38, let us read together at the top of the page. Infinite as is your power, even so is your love. It may be seen through the history of our people Israel, through laws and ethical precepts, through statutes and ordinances. You have led us in the ways of righteousness and brought us to the light of truth. Therefore, at our lying down and our rising up, we will meditate on the Torah's teachings, finding within it the inspiration and guidance for our daily lives. May your love never depart from us. We praise you, God, through our people, Israel. We continue with the Shema on page 39.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Vaed. You shall love the eternal God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart, shall be upon your heart. And you shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be a symbol before your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, and on your gates. And you may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy to your God, to your God, to your God.
On page 42, let us read these verses responsively. In truth, the Eternal One alone is our Redeemer. Let us praise the eternal God who gives rest to the weary and hope to the despondent. Blessed is Shabbat, the Queen of Days, which offers to our people enrichment of the soul. How blessed are those who observe Shabbat, who sanctify it with prayer and study and with friendship. May our homes be filled with light and gladness. May our hearts be steadfast, trusting in the Eternal One. We continue on page 43 with Mi Chamocha.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Torah tehilot sefer
We continue on page 44. As the Sabbath descends, it enfolds us in its mantle of peace. It brings to us the precious gift of time to embrace family and friends, to reflect more deeply on the meaning and purpose of our lives, and to worship in the beauty of holiness. May every Shabbat be for us a sanctuary of love and devotion, bringing contentment to our hearts, happiness to our homes, and blessings to our people. Together, those who celebrate Shabbat and call it a delight rejoice in your creation. All who hallow the seventh day shall be gladdened by your goodness. This day is Israel's festival of the Spirit, sanctified and blessed by you, the most precious of days, a symbol of the joy of creation. We continue with Yismachu in the middle of page 44.
ישמחו ומלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו ומלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת מקדשי שבי שבת כולם יספעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ובשביעי רצית בו והקדשתו שבת חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת זכר למעשה וראשית שבת זכר מעשה למעשה וראשית שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
Friends, let's turn to page 45, and we are going to rise for Adonai Sifatai Tiftach.
Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel,
El Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Gula Lifnei B'neihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah. Let us be seated, and we are going to continue responsively on page 46. God of ages past and future, God of this day, as you were with our mothers and fathers, be with us as well.
As you strengthen them, strengthen us. As you were their God, be ours as well.
Grant that we too may be bearers of your teaching, teachers of your truth.
That our tradition shall endure, and our people Israel will live, from mother and father to daughter and son, and all who follow them.
One generation comes, one generation passes. Each of us is a link in the endless chain of our heritage.
Students of the Torah become teachers. Our faith and our ideals endure. Our people and our values as well.
On page 48, God calls our people Israel to be of service. May we fulfill this charge by exemplifying the Torah's ideals with all those who encounter in our daily lives. May we have the grace to fulfill our mission with enthusiasm and with joy, always tempered by wisdom and guided by respect for other people's faith and ideals. May our actions attest to the strength of our convictions. May our conduct towards our neighbors, our faithfulness in every sphere of duty, our compassion for those in need, and our patience under trial show that the one whose law we obey is indeed the God of all goodness, the loving creator of all people. This teaches us that to serve God is perfect freedom, and to worship God the soul's purest delight. May our eyes and minds always be open so that we may see and welcome all truth, whether shining from the wisdom of ancient revelations or reaching us through the prophets of our own time. For God continues to shed light on every generation that seeks the guidance of the Eternal One. Page 49, grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace and that we may rise up again to life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with wise counsel. Be as a shield about us, fortifying us against hatred and war, against pestilence and sorrow. Curb within us the inclination to do evil, and enfold us with the embrace of your love. Guide our going out and coming in to life and peace from this time forth and forever. We praise you, God, for you shelter us and all who dwell on earth. On page 51, let us join together at the top of the page. We gratefully acknowledge that the eternal God is our creator and preserver, the rock of our life and the shield of our help. We thank God and sing praises for the gift of life itself, for our souls that are ever in God's keeping, for the signs of our Creator's presence that we encounter every day, and for God's wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. Truly our blessings are without end, and God's loving kindness never ceases. Therefore do we forever put our trust in the Eternal One. We continue with Shalom Rav in the middle of page 52.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon V'chol hashalom, shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. V'tov benecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Friends, let's continue with some moments of private reflection. Friends, let's turn back in our Seder Ream, our prayer books, to page 10. And let me begin at the top of the page. Prayer invites God's presence to lift our spirits. It allows the blessing and gift of hope to prevail in our lives. Prayer might not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. Together in the middle of the page, we pray for all people who are at this hour are in sickness, want, or in distress of body or spirit. We name in our hearts those who are near to us, whose pain we feel pain. Let them know your help and feel your presence, realizing that they are not alone. Friends, at this time in the service, we want to be mindful of those who are ill within our community. And if you'd like to share a name of someone that you are thinking of or praying for this evening, and I ask you to do so, I'm going to go around the congregation and you can speak out. Yeah.
C-O-H-W-E-V-C-S and M-A-A.
Okay.
Hal Londy.
Okay. Yeah.
Lou Gershon.
Okay.
Laura Johnson.
Anybody else?
Larry Nussbaum and Scott Denny.
Okay.
Mark Gerson.
Let's continue with Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Avo source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu b'kor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat shalom to everyone. It's nice, wonderful seeing a sanctuary is filled this evening. How many people here would say they're computer illiterate? No, computer literate. I'm being very serious.
What is literate?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so I only can say what I am, because I don't want to impose my standard on other people. I can turn on the computer. I can, I know how to work all the Microsoft programs. I know how to get into the internet. I know how to connect other machines to this. I know how to set up a network. I know that if things go wrong, you turn the computer off and turn it back on and pray that it works. I know these things. Do I know things like programming or advanced problem solving? No, I don't. And the fact of the matter is, we know that if you don't have it coming out of school, our educational system has failed completely. And I have to remember that I didn't buy my first personal computer until I was in my 6th year of being a rabbi, so that just tells you how the world has changed. So I'm not going to worry about computer literacy tonight. I'm going to think about for a moment biblical literacy. I'm not speaking about being familiar with every page of the Bible. That's impossible. I'm not speaking about memorization, because memorization has never been my thing. That's not realistic. What I'm thinking about is being acquainted with some of the important personalities of the Bible. And one needs it not just for one's own edification. It's important for our own understanding of world literature. It's certainly important for us to understand what it means for us to be Jews. Now, most of us know who Adam and Eve were. Most of us know the names of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But there are other basic personalities that we should also know. We should know who Jethro was, the father-in-law of Moses who guided him and encouraged him. We should know the name Korach, a person who led the rebellion against the authority of Moses and Aaron. We should know the name of Moses' mother, Yocheved. Yocheved. Bobby, did you know that?
No.
You should have just lied, because I already told you. The name Nathan, who spoke truth to King David, who had committed a terrible moral sin. The name Amos, who was the first Hebrew prophet and spoke fiercely against corruption and social injustice. Now, I could go on and on and on. And I remember in rabbinical school, where it was my final year and I had put this course off my entire rabbinical career, you had to take a course called Former Prophets, where they just give you a test on everything in the book of Joshua, the book of Samuel, the second book of Samuel, the book of Judges, the second book of Judges, And so if you didn't pass the test, you wouldn't graduate from rabbinical school. So I had a stack of index cards where I went through every page and tried to figure out what possible question could they ask. I went through it and I passed, and here I am. That's okay. But knowing these, it makes sense. So many of the most important people and stories are missing from our Jewish awareness. But if I was to start anywhere, if I was to start, who would I teach beyond the people that we already know? I would definitely teach two people in our Torah reading. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just setting this up because I needed a sermon this week. I really believe this. And I try to every year, and I've gone through the messages I've given over my 40 years of being a rabbi. I often mention this, but it's important. There are two minor characters in the first chapter of Exodus who are named Shifra and Puah. And every Jewish child and adult needs to know who they are, or they are missing an essential dimension of Judaism's moral vision. It's easy to miss them because they're mentioned only very briefly in the first chapter of Exodus, and they go on because the whole purpose of this section is to tell us about Moses, how he was born, how he was saved, how he was selected by God. So there's not a lot of time given to these two people. So let me summarize who they were. The sons of Jacob thrived in Egypt, and they lived separately from Pharaoh, who was benevolent. And most probably, this Pharaoh loved the people, the Hebrews, because they respected Joseph. Then everything changes. There's a new Pharaoh, and the new Pharaoh sees the Israelites as a threat and decides to treat them harshly to limit their growth and strength. But the harsh treatment isn't sufficient. The new Pharaoh issues orders to kill newborn Hebrew boys. Two midwives refuse to obey. And here's what the Torah says, and I'm going to read you everything we know about this story in a few lines. Quote, "The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, the first whose name was Shifra and the second was named Puah, and he said, when you deliver the Hebrew women and you see them on the birthing stone, if it is a son, you shall kill it, and if it's a girl, she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and they did not do as the king of Egypt spoke to them, and they allowed the boys to live. And the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said, why have you done this thing that you have allowed the boys to live? And the midwives have no intention of going along. So Shifra and Puah said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women, for they are extremely vigorous, and before the midwife can arrive, they've already given birth. Now, that's a pretty bold lie to tell the Pharaoh. But you know what's amazing? Pharaoh backs off. These women. I have this image of Shifra and Puah, like the little old ladies. That's what I'm thinking. Now, there is some debate about Shifra and Puah, whether they were Hebrews or Egyptians. But I'm going to follow the wisdom of the commentators Josephus, Philo, Abravanel, that the midwives were Egyptians. Because in my opinion, they need to be Egyptian. Because you and I need to know that there are righteous people of all faiths in this world, and the Torah recognizes that. Here is a story of two Egyptian women willing to risk their lives to save Hebrew babies. These two women apparently understood that despite the totalitarian laws of Pharaoh, the despot of Egypt, there was a higher ethical law to which they had to submit. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the first record of citizens risking their lives against an unjust government to follow a higher law of conscience and God. And if they failed this moral challenge, they would have felt that they had sold out their souls. And the Torah states that the women disobeyed Pharaoh because they feared God. They were accountable to something greater than themselves. Now, in history, there have always been people who stand up for what is right, even if the consequences are unspeakable. And in the 20th century, as we all know, we discovered this in the righteous Gentiles, the Chasidei Umot HaOlam. The people who risked saving Jews, especially children, during the Holocaust. In Yad Vashem, the Israeli Center for Jewish Historical Memory of the Holocaust has identified that there were 28,217 righteous Gentiles. They have records. They're very record-oriented. So I'm not going to talk about this 27,000 people, obviously, but let us remember the name of one of them who died in June 2022, a modern-day Shifra and Pua. And this woman's story is amazing. Andrea Gulen was a Belgian school teacher who saved the lives of hundreds of Jewish children during the Holocaust, holding their hands and comforting them with stories as she spirited them to hiding places where they stayed until liberation. Ms. Gulen was an 18-year-old Catholic-born teacher when Hitler conquered Belgium in 1940. And despite the wartime deprivations, her life carried on more or less as usual until she began to witness the cruelties visited upon her Jewish students. And one day, several Jewish students arrived at school with their notebooks held tightly against their chests, and they were trying to hide the yellow stars sewn on their uniforms in accordance with a Nazi decree. And to lessen their shame and fear, Ms. Gulen declared that all her students, Jewish or not, would wear aprons over their uniforms. If only in the confines of her classroom, a yellow star, its presence or absence, was no matter. And shortly after, Ms. Gulen's Jewish students began to disappear. And they had been rounded up, bound for deportation to Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp in occupied Poland. And she stated in an interview, at that very moment, I said to myself, what can I do to help? What can I do? Ms. Gulen joined the underground and devoted herself to the rescue of Jewish children. Ms. Gulen, under a code name, it's like a spy novel when you read about her, escorted Jewish children to farms, convents, boarding schools, and the homes of host families, where she and her colleagues in the resistance had arranged for them to live under assumed Christian identities. And what Ms. Gulen described as an indispensable security measure, under no circumstances did she reveal to parents where she was taking their children, lest the parents be tempted to visit and risk the entire mission. And she recalled one mother impressing upon her, I'm trusting you with the most precious gift that I have. In a complex series of ledgers, and I don't quite understand it after reading the story, but according to this complex bunch of ledgers, Ms. Gulen and her colleagues recorded the true names of the children in their care, their assumed names and their locations, but in such a manner that no single notebook, should it fall into the wrong hands, would reveal their whereabouts. Of the 300 to 400 lives Ms. Gulen was credited with saving, some of them had scarcely begun. The youngest of the children she rescued were newborns, 5 or 6 days old, Shifra and Pua, lifted them from the arms of their mothers in hospital maternity wards, and taken to places where they would be safe, or at least safer until the Nazi danger passed. Her underground group worked with a doctor who would inform them when a Jewish woman had given birth and wished to surrender the child for safekeeping. In an interview, she said, taking children that way from a mother who was just given birth is terrible. Getting onto a train with Jewish children, knowing that the Germans could get on, that didn't frighten me. But to tear a child away from his mother and not tell her where we were taking her, and then to have her cry and cry, tell me, at least only tell me where you're going to take him, that was horror. And she added, if I'd had children then, I don't know if I could have done it. Now, some of those babies, like other children rescued by Ms. Gulen, would be united with their families after the war. But many of their parents were murdered in the concentration camps. Meeting decades later with one of the children she had helped, Ms. Gulen spoke to the man of his mother and his mother's anguish on leaving him before her ultimate death. She let you go, and saved your life. So on this Shabbat, let us remember Shifra and Puah, who might not be known to some of us. They're known now. And talk about them. They showed us what we can do at our best. And let every Jewish child and Jewish adult know those names. And may Shifra and Puah force us to ask the question, what would we do? And what risks would we take to do what is righteous and holy? Shabbat Shalom. Let us continue in our service as we continue with the adoration. And I am going to find the page 368. Let us rise. Let us adore the ever-living God who offers praise unto you, who spreads out the heaven and established the earth. Your glory is revealed in the heavens above, and your greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are God, there is none else. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. You may be seated. Let us read together these paragraphs on page 369. May the time not be distant, O God, when you shall be worshipped throughout the earth, when unbelief shall disappear and error be no more. Fervently we pray that the day may come when all people shall be guided by your teachings. Corruption and evil shall give way to purity and goodness. Superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. Then all who dwell on earth shall know that to you alone every knee shall bend and every voice give praise. May all created in your recognize that we are brothers and sisters, so that one in spirit and one in harmony be forever united before you. Then shall your reign be established on earth, and the word of your ancient prophet be fulfilled. The eternal God will reign forever and ever. On that day the eternal shall be one, and God's name shall be one. Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. Friends, at this time, recall the yurt sites that are part of the permanent memory of our community. Maurice Brown, Dorothy Fromm, Dorothy Goldman, Philip Halperin, S. Harvey Lehner, Sally Herman, Richard Levin, Stuart Levine, Maurice Miller, Diane Mnookin, Violet Oppenheimer, Jacob Reichert, Betty Rosen, Esther Rubin, Lena Siegel, Gertrude Seit, Robert Stanley Seit Sr., Stephen Walter, Lois Weiner, Metabaum Westheimer, Norman Westheimer, and June Wolfe. In solemn testimony to that unbroken faith that links the generations of the house of Israel one to another, let us rise for the mourner's Kaddish on page 375. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach hirutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael, bagalav izman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach li'olam omei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'elam and kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran v'yama v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend on us and all Israel and all the world, and let us say amen. Please be seated. The Shabbat flowers are dedicated in memory of Richard Levin, by John and Ann Brendel, by Michael and Diane Levin, and Nancy Levin and Jeff Flora. In memory of Maurice Miller, by Linda and Michael Browdy. In memory of Jacob Reichert, by Barbara Marmer and Joe Haydu. In memory of Stephen Walter, by Patty Chasnoff. And in memory of Lois Weiner, by Ken Weiner and Pam Fleischer. A couple of things that we want to announce. There was some confusion. Brendan, this will help, okay? Next week, we're going to be doing something unheard of. We're going to have 2 services happening. And theoretically, you go to both of them. If you'd like to, there is a young family Shabbat, and we'll deal with the name of that later. Friday, January 20th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. in our downstairs social hall. There'll be a service with singing, activities, and a pizza dinner. Then people are being asked to come to that to bring dessert. So we're asking for an RSVP, and Brendan will be leading it. Okay? You knew that.
Yeah, I knew that part.
Okay. Okay, next week, Becky and Nathan Bliss will be back. And NRT, I want to make 2 other announcements, that we are creating an NRT book club. Martha Gershon is spearheading it. She's in the back. If I let her speak, well, it'll be dangerous. But we're really encouraging this. It's important that we have a book club. It'll be Sunday, April 30th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. It's going to be a bi-monthly group. We'll discuss books with Jewish content. The first book is The Secret Chord by Geraldine Brooks. And if you want more information, you can RSVP to Martha. And but you can get her information through our website and our emails. And if you need it, you can call the office. Immediately following services, we will join together for our Onik Shabbat. And I didn't forget our Yiddish wisdom for today. Last week, I started sharing Yiddish wisdom at the beginning of the service, but I decided perhaps I could try it towards the end of the service. You know Yiddish humor is Yiddish humor. Okay, so you have to get the feel for it. So here's one. It even has a picture. It's good to learn to barber on someone else's beard. That was good. I'm not going to let you down. Okay, let me try another one. Just 2. I don't quite understand this. You can't chew with someone else's teeth. You can't. Now, I'm trying to figure out what that means. I think it means what it says, and I have no idea what it means. Okay, that's it for tonight. What are we singing?
Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu. Well, okay.
Wait, do you know where it is?
Yes, I know where it is.
Okay, I'll wait till you get the page in case someone wants to finish.
I'm going to tell you where it is. Okay, Hashkivenu. It's before. Okay, so let's see. It's on page 23.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I want to run that around to all the kids on Sunday. What does it mean to say you can't chew with somebody else's teeth? And then maybe they'll come up with a good answer.
These things, they're good.
Yeah, I agree. Do the batteries get better? You were complaining those batteries are... Yeah, are they better now? Oh.
I did a rehearsal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eloheinu לשלום, עמידנו